They say that every great thinker stands on the shoulders of giants. And Plato, one of the greatest philosophers the world has ever known, stood on the shoulders of Socrates. But in many ways, he didn't just inherit Socrates' thoughts, he built an entire universe out of them. Imagine a man who wasn't just curious about politics or ethics or knowledge, but someone who asked, what is truth itself? What is justice, really? What is reality? That man was Plato. He was born around 427 BCE in ancient Athens, a place where the seeds of democracy and philosophical thought were just beginning to sprout. And from a young age, he wasn't interested in just living life. He wanted to understand life. Not in a casual way, but in a deep, soul-searching kind of way. He found a teacher in Socrates, the man who questioned everything. Socrates didn't write anything down, but he spoke with such force and insight that those around him were changed forever. Plato was one of them. After Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth and not believing in the gods of the state, Plato was shaken. He had seen how a democratic society could be swayed by emotion and fear, how truth could be silenced by the mob, and how the wisest man in the city could be executed for speaking uncomfortable truths. So Plato made it his life's mission to preserve his teacher's ideas, but also to go further. To answer the questions Socrates raised, and to build a system of thought that could guide not just individuals, but entire societies. Plato started writing dialogues, conversations between characters, often with Socrates as the central voice. But these weren't just casual talks. They were deep dives into the soul, into justice, knowledge, beauty, and power. His most famous work is called The Republic, and it's a mix of political theory, psychology, ethics, and metaphysics, all rolled into one. At the heart of The Republic is a simple but profound question: what is justice? And why should anyone be just? Plato didn't answer this by giving a dictionary definition. No, he built a whole city in words to show us what justice might look like if it were built into the fabric of society. He imagined a city where everyone did the job they were best suited for. Rulers ruled with wisdom, soldiers protected with courage, and workers supported with honesty and discipline. In that balance, in that harmony of parts, Plato believed justice would arise, not just in the city, but in the soul of each individual. But the part of Plato's philosophy that has echoed the loudest through time is his idea of the world of forms, or as some call them, the ideal forms. It sounds abstract at first, but stick with it, because once you get it, it changes the way you see everything. Here's the basic idea. Look around you, everything you see is constantly changing. A tree grows, then withers. A person ages. A building decays. Even your thoughts and feelings shift from one moment to the next. Plato noticed this, and he asked, if everything in the physical world is changing, how can we have true knowledge of anything? Think about it. If you tried to study something that keeps shifting, how can you ever really know it? So he proposed something radical. He said there must be another realm, a non-physical realm, where perfect, unchanging versions of things exist. Not made of matter, not seen with the eyes, but grasped with the mind. For example, every circle we draw in the real world is a little off. No matter how perfect it looks, it's never truly perfect. But in our minds, we can imagine the idea of a perfect circle. That perfect circle doesn't exist in the real world, but in the world of forms, it does. The same goes for justice, beauty, goodness. Every example of justice in the world is flawed in some way. But the idea of perfect justice, unchanging, absolute, that exists in this higher realm. To explain this, Plato gave us one of the most powerful metaphors in philosophy, the allegory of the cave. Imagine people chained inside a dark cave. They've been there since birth, and all they've ever seen are shadows cast on the wall in front of them by objects behind them, lit by fire. To them, those shadows are reality. That's all they know. But one person breaks free, leaves the cave, and steps into the sunlight. At first, the light blinds him. But as his eyes adjust, he sees the real world, trees, rivers, people, the sun itself. He realizes that what he saw in the cave were just shadows, mere illusions compared to true reality. That, Plato says, is our condition. We live in the cave of the physical world, mistaking appearances for truth. But the world of forms, the world outside the cave, is the true reality. The philosopher, like the free prisoner, seeks to escape the cave and see things as they truly are. And that's what Plato believed philosophy was about, not just arguing or debating, but turning the soul toward the light. Helping people see that the world they cling to, full of wealth, power, and pleasure, is just a shadow of something deeper. Real wisdom, real beauty, real goodness, they are not found in things, but in understanding. In seeing the form behind the object. The truth behind the illusion. But Plato didn't stop there. He believed that rulers should be philosophers. Not because philosophers are smarter, but because they seek truth and are less likely to be corrupted by power. He wrote about the philosopher king, a ruler who leads not with ego, but with wisdom, humility, and knowledge of the good. In Plato's ideal society, education would be the path to justice, not weapons, not wealth, but learning. The purpose of education, in his eyes, was to turn the soul away from darkness and toward the light of truth. Now, this might sound like a dream, maybe even a little utopian. But Plato wasn't naive. He knew that people resist truth. That power often corrupts. That many would rather stay in the cave than face the light. He even criticized democracy in his writings, not because he hated freedom, but because he saw how easily the masses could be manipulated by emotions, rhetoric, and charisma. He had seen it firsthand with the death of Socrates. So he warned us, a society that doesn't educate its citizens to think deeply and seek truth will fall into chaos, injustice, and tyranny. And here's where Plato's words still speak to us today. Because we live in a world of distractions, endless noise, social media, political spin, shallow entertainment. Shadows dancing on the wall of the cave. We chase appearances. We confuse popularity with wisdom, wealth with worth, beauty with goodness. But Plato urges us to look deeper. To ask, what is real? What is good? What does it mean to live a just life? He reminds us that real freedom doesn't come from doing whatever we want, but from understanding what is truly worth wanting. That the highest pleasures aren't found in the senses, but in the soul. In the pursuit of truth. In the alignment of our lives with something greater than ourselves. And that's what makes Plato timeless. Not just because he was brilliant, but because he dared to ask the questions that matter. He gave us a language to think about justice, reality, and the self. He made us realize that the world we see is only part of the story. That behind every shadow is a source. And behind every illusion, there might just be a truth waiting to be discovered. So when you feel lost in this chaotic world, when everything seems fake, when the noise becomes too loud, remember the cave. Remember that there's a way out. That philosophy isn't just about old books and big words. It's about the journey from darkness to light. From confusion to clarity. From appearance to truth. Plato began that journey centuries ago, sitting at the feet of Socrates. But the path he lit still shines today. And if you're willing to look up from the shadows, if you're brave enough to question what you see and seek what lies beyond, then you're already walking in his footsteps. You're already on the path of the philosopher. And maybe, just maybe, the light is waiting for you too.